Dear students, last time we discussed about field of fractions of an integral domain and ring of fractions of a ring, commutative ring with identity. Let me recall a few things from our previous session. So we discussed that if D is an integral domain, if D is an integral domain, and we denote by capital S the non-zero elements of D. The non-zero elements of D. This means non-zero divisors. That is non-zero divisors. And recall that we have proved that product of two non-zero divisors is a non-zero divisor as well. Anyway, if D is an integral domain and we denote by capital S the non-zero elements of D, that is non-zero divisors, then first of all we note that S is closed under multiplication because product of two non-zero divisors is a non-zero divisor. S is closed under multiplication. Secondly, 1 belongs to S, and thirdly, 0 does not belong to S. Having done that, we considered the cross product of D with S. So we considered D cross S and defined an equivalence relation on D cross S and defined an equivalence relation on D cross S by saying that if we take two elements of D cross S by we define this equivalence relation by saying that AS is related with BT if and only if AT is equal to BS. So this is the equivalence relation if and only if AT is equal to BS, and we proved that this is an equivalence relation. We have proved that this is an equivalence relation and note that for proving the transitivity of this particular equivalence relation we used the fact that D is an integral domain. So note that for proving that that this particular relation is transitive. In fact, reflexiveness and symmetricity follows very easily. However, for transitivity, we require this condition that D is an integral domain. So note that for proving that this is transitive, we used the fact that D is integral domain. I am emphasizing on this particular aspect for the reason that when we consider a ring which is not necessarily an integral domain, then in order to obtain transitivity of the relation we have defined, we make a little change in this condition. Anyway, so for proving that this relation is transitive, we use the fact that D is integral domain. So having established that this relation is an equivalence relation, then we obtained equivalence classes. So we denoted equivalence class of AS by this particular symbol A by S, and we had set of all these equivalence classes which we denoted by S inverse D, S raised to power minus 1 D, and this is equal to set of all the equivalence classes such that AS belongs to D cross S. So this is set of all the equivalence classes, and then we proved that S inverse D, this is a field. We proved that S inverse D is a field, and this is called field of fractions of integral domain, called field of fractions of integral domain. So we made this construction in all the details. We defined addition, multiplication, and established all the conditions for a field. So S inverse D was proved to be a field. Then what we did, we considered a ring, commutative ring with identity which may not be an integral domain. Then we considered a commutative ring with identity So we considered a commutative ring with identity, and that we denoted that ring by R. This may not be an integral domain, just a commutative ring with identity. And then we considered a subset of R let's say we chose S a subset of R such that same condition we have already discussed for integral domain, such that first of all S is closed under multiplication. S is closed under multiplication. This was the first condition. And second condition was, you very well know that identity element, multiplicator identity belongs to S. And the third condition was 0 does not belong to S. So we take a multiplicative closed subset of R which does not contain 0 element and contains identity element. We defined a relation on R cross S by saying that it has almost same definition by saying that AS is related with BT if and only if AT minus BS, for the time being I am just writing it, AT minus BS is equal to 0. Note that if we say that AT minus BS is equal to 0, it becomes AT is equal to BS, and this is the same condition we used for integral domain. But I told you about integral domain that when we were working with integral domain, in order to prove that this relation is transitive, we needed the fact that the ring is integral domain. Now in our case, ring R may not be an integral domain, so this definition of relation will not lead us to transitivity of this particular relation. So in order to make this particular relation transitive, we put another condition that AS is related with BT if and only if AT minus BS multiplied with U is equal to 0, where U belongs to S. So this is the way we define this is the way we define a relation on R cross S, that AS is related with BT if and only if AT minus BS is equal BS multiplied with some element of U, some element of S is equal to 0. And if we choose this definition, then you remember that we established that with this definition of relation, this relation is transitive, and reflexivity and symmetricity is very easy to establish. So this relation is an equivalence relation. Having done that, we denoted the set of equivalence classes. We denoted S inverse R is equal to A by S is equivalence class of AS, such that AS belongs to R cross S. So we denoted by this particular set, we represented by this particular set the set of all the equivalence classes of this particular equivalence relation. For the set of all the equivalence classes, in fact distinct equivalence classes, of this particular equivalence relation. And remember that then we defined addition on S inverse R, we defined multiplication on S inverse R, and we proved that S inverse R is a commutative ring with identity. So we defined addition and multiplication and proved that S inverse R is a commutative ring with identity. And this commutative ring with identity is called a ring of fractions of R, called the ring of fractions of R. If we choose R as integral domain, then this ring of fractions becomes field of fractions of that particular integral domain. So these are few things we have discussed in our previous session. Please note that if we are given a commutative ring with identity and a subset of that ring which is closed under multiplication contains multiplicative identity and does not contain 0, if we are given such a subset, then we can define ring of fractions of that ring R, and the method you know very well, that all we do is we consider the cross product of R with S, and then we define equivalence relation in this way, and then we take equivalence classes, define addition, multiplication, and we get the commutative ring with identity called ring of fractions. So having this particular structure in mind, in this particular construction in mind, let's consider a commutative ring R. So let R be a commutative ring with identity and P be, capital P be a prime ideal of R, be a prime ideal of R. And you remember the condition of prime ideal, that if product of two elements belongs to the prime ideal, then one of those elements should be in the prime ideal. If product of A and B belongs to P, then either A belongs to P or B belongs to P. This is definition of prime ideal. So let R be a commutative ring with identity and P be a prime ideal of R. Then R minus P. R minus P means all those elements of this ring which are not in P. So R minus P is set of all those elements of the ring which are not in P. So you can say that this is X belonging to R such that X does not belong to P. So R minus P, let's call this particular set, let's call it S. Then if R minus P is denoted by S, we have number one, R minus P, you can look at it in this way, that this is complement of P in R. all the elements of R which are not in P. So complement of P in R. Remove all the elements of P from R, and then rest is R minus P, which we call S. So note that then we have S is closed under multiplication, is closed under multiplication. Secondly, 1 belongs to S, because you know that every prime ideal is a proper ideal. So multiplicative identity cannot belong to a prime ideal. So when you take R minus P, 1 is in R minus P. And thirdly, 0 does not belong to S. The reason is very simple, because 0 belongs to P, so 0 cannot belong to R minus P. So the set S is closed under multiplication. You have to check that. This is closed under multiplication. Check it. It is very simple to check it. It just follows from the definition of prime ideal. So S is closed under multiplication. 1 does not belong to S, and 1 belongs to S, and 0 does not belong to S. So having said that, note that R minus P denoted by S satisfies all the conditions we have already discussed in for S, and we use this particular S in order to obtain ring of fractions of the ring R. Now if we are given a commutative ring with identity and P is its prime ideal, then R minus P is a set which is closed under multiplication and contains 1 and does not contain 0. So we can repeat the construction we have already done. So we can repeat the construction we have already done. So we can repeat the construction we have discussed above. And obtain the ring of fractions S inverse R. And this particular process of obtaining ring of fractions S inverse R, this procedure or this process is called localization, for a very special reason I will explain in a while. So the concept we are discussing is localization. And let's recall that a commutative ring with identity is called a local ring if it has only one maximal ideal. So it will be very clear to you very soon why we call this process as localization. Let me repeat that. We have taken a commutative ring with identity R and a prime ideal, and then we have taken a complement of that prime ideal, that is R minus P, and R minus P is multiplicatively closed, contains 1, does not contain 0. So we can construct ring of fractions of R. So we can repeat the construction we have discussed above. And obtain S inverse R. This is the ring of fractions of R. This may not be filled. That is the ring of fractions of R. This particular ring of fractions of R has a very special ideal, and let me tell you what that ideal is. We have, in fact, what we are going to do is that we are going to consider this particular subset of S inverse R. This is set of all those equivalence classes A by S. This is equivalence class under the equivalence relation we have defined, such that, note that we are going to take those elements of S inverse R for which element of numerator, this element A belongs to P. So A belongs to P, and about S we know that S belongs to S. So we are considering that subset of S inverse R, those equivalence classes for which numerator is element of the prime ideal and denominator, you know that this is always element of S. So we note that first of all we note that this particular subset of S inverse R is an ideal of S inverse R. M is an ideal of S inverse R. And you can check it very easily. Check it. Secondly, M is in fact maximal ideal of S inverse R. M is maximal ideal. Is maximal ideal of S inverse R. And make a little study about that and prove it. Make a little study with the help of internet, or if you have some good book on algebra, make a little study and prove it. And thirdly, M is in fact the only maximal ideal of S inverse R. M is the only maximal ideal of S inverse R. And for this purpose, again make a little study. Little study and convince yourself. And convince yourself that this is in fact the only maximal ideal of R. Now recall that a commutative ring with identity which has only one maximal ideal is called a local ring. So what we have done is we have established that S inverse R has only one maximal ideal, which is given by this particular ideal. So therefore S inverse R is a local ring. Therefore S inverse R is a local ring. Now let's see what we have done. We started from a commutative ring R with identity. We took a prime ideal of this particular commutative ring. Then we take complement of this particular prime ideal, that is all the elements of ring R which do not belong to this prime ideal. And we noted that this complement R minus P, we denoted it by capital S, and we noted that capital S is closed under multiplication capital S contains 1, does not contain 0. Therefore, capital S satisfies all those conditions which we use in order to obtain ring of fractions of a commutative ring with identity. Therefore, we can obtain ring of fractions of commutative ring R with the help of this particular subset S. And having obtained that ring of fractions, we noted that that ring of fractions has only one maximal ideal. Therefore, this particular ring of fractions S inverse R is a local ring. So this process of starting from a commutative ring, the identity and a prime ideal, then arriving at ring of fractions which is local ring, this process is called localization. So this process of obtaining ring of fractions of a commutative ring or with identity So this process of obtaining ring of fractions of a commutative ring or with identity with the help of prime ideal P is called, this process is called localization of the ring R is called localization, because the resulting ring of fractions, because S inverse R is local ring, or S inverse R has only one maximal ideal. So this is about localization of a ring, which we do with the help of a prime ideal of a commutative ring with identity. So having said that, let's come to a very special ring homomorphism we have already discussed. So recall that given, let's start from integral domain. So recall that given an integral domain, suppose we are given an integral domain, let's write it, we can write it as D, but let's write it R. So recall that given an integral domain R and a subset S of R which is multiplicatively closed, contains identity element, does not contain 0. So if we are given an integral domain and multiplicatively closed subset S of R with these conditions, 0 does not belong to S. So recall that given an integral domain R and a subset S of R which is multiplicatively closed, contains 1, does not contain 0, we obtain S inverse R with the process we have discussed quite few times. We obtain S inverse R, the ring of fractions, which is in fact commutative ring with identity and a morphism, a ring homomorphism and a morphism. We discussed that morphism last time. That morphism we denoted it by F, and this morphism is from the ring R into ring of fractions S inverse R, and this is given by effect of F on any element of ring R. Let's say element A belongs to R, then F of A, effect of F on A is equal to A by 1. Note that A by 1 is an equivalence class and A by 1 belongs to S inverse R. So this is the way we define a function. Here you can check that this is a ring homomorphism. So this is a ring homomorphism from R to ring of fractions. And note that we have taken R as an integral domain. This is very important to note that this is an integral domain. So now let's see what is kernel of this particular ring homomorphism. Now kernel of F is equal to these are those elements of the ring. These are those elements of the ring R on which effect of F is equal to zero element of the ring of fractions S inverse R, and you know that zero element of S inverse R can be written as 0 by 1, 0 by, so this can be written as 0 by any element of S, where S belongs to S, or where let me write it T, because we will need S in some other form for some other purpose. Let's write it T. Anyway, T or S, it does not make any difference. So FR is equal to 0 divided by T, where I should not say 0 divided by T, this is equivalence class, 0 by T, where T belongs to S. Equivalence class of 0 of S inverse R is given by 0 by any element of S, and we have written that element as T. So having said that, let's explain it a bit more. And now this is equal to, these are those elements of the ring R such that now FA is equal to A by 1. So FR will be equal to R by 1. So this is set of those elements of ring R such that R by 1 is equal to 0 by any element of S, 0 by T, where T belongs to S. And this is equal to those elements of this ring R such that, now you know that what does this mean? R by 1 is equal to 0 by T means this order pair R1 is related with this order pair 0T. So where T belongs to S, and this is equal to, these are those elements of this ring R such that R1 is related with 0T means R multiplied with T is equal to 1 multiplied with 0, or 0 multiplied with 1. So this is R multiplied with T is equal to 1 multiplied with 0 or 0 multiplied with 1, where t belongs to S. And this is equal to, these are all those elements of this ring are such that RT is equal to 0, where t belongs to S. Now note that R multiplied with t is equal to 0 and t belongs to S, and S does not contain 0. So t is a non-zero element. Now t is a non-zero element and its product with R is equal to 0. And ring R is an integral domain. So if product of R with this non-zero element is equal to 0, then this R has to be 0 because the ring is an integral domain. So this is equal to R belong to R such that R is equal to 0. Reason is because R is an integral domain, and therefore R cannot contain zero divisors. Therefore R has to be 0 because R is an integral domain. And this is equal to R belonging to R such that R is equal to 0 means just 0 set, singleton 0 set. So we have proved that thus kernel of this particular ring homomorphism F is equal to 0, and you know that if kernel of a ring homomorphism is 0, then that ring homomorphism is injective, or that is a monomorphism. So therefore F is injective. Or monomorphism. So for this reason we say that if R is an integral domain, thus if R is an integral domain, S subset of R is closed under multiplication. One belongs to S and 0 does not belong to S. These are very necessary conditions. Then what we can do is we can form the ring of fractions S inverse R. Then, and there is an injective ring homomorphism from R to S inverse R. So we say that then R is embedded in S inverse R. Just note that what we are saying is that if R is integral domain and S inverse R is a ring of fractions of R, then R is embedded in S inverse R. This means that there is a one-to-one ring homomorphism from R into S inverse R. And we also say that R is sitting inside S inverse R. So having said that, let's come to another case. Let's discuss a case in a little generality, that in this case the ring R was an integral domain. Let's take a ring which is not necessarily an integral domain. So for a general ring, for general case, for general case, that we are going to consider a commutative ring with identity, but which that may or may not be an integral domain. So let R be a commutative ring with identity. Let R be a commutative ring with identity, which may or may not be an integral domain, which may or may not be an integral domain. So it is just a commutative ring with identity, not necessarily an integral domain. So let R be a commutative ring with identity, and let S inverse R be ring of fractions of R. So having said that, it simply, when we say that S inverse R is ring of fractions of R, it simply implies that S is a subset of R which is closed multiplication, contains 1 and does not contain 0. So we are not going to repeat those sentences again and again. So let R be a commutative ring with identity, and let S inverse R be a ring of fractions of R. Then we have a ring homomorphism. The same we have discussed above. F, this is from ring R to ring of fractions S inverse R, given by, and you know that this is given by, as we have already done that, this is given by, before we said that F A is equal to 1 upon A, perhaps given by F A is equal to 1 upon, F A is equal to A upon 1. So F A is equal to A upon 1. So this is the ring homomorphism. Now let's see what happens with kernel of this ring homomorphism. Now kernel of this particular ring homomorphism, kernel of F is equal to, these are those elements of the ring R for which F image is equal to 0 element, as we have done before. So this is equal to R belonging to ring R such that F of R is equal to 0 element. 0 element may be 0 upon any element of S, where T belongs to S. So this is kernel of ring homomorphism F, and this can be written as, this is equal to those elements of this ring R for which F R is equal to R by 1. R by 1 is equal to 0 by T, where T belongs to S. And having said that, and this is equal to, these are those elements of this ring R for which R1 is equal to 0T, means R1 order pair is related with 0T order pair. So such that R1 order pair is related with 0T order pair for T belonging to S, where T belongs to S, and this is equal to R belonging to R such that, now note that ring R is not necessarily an integral domain. So in this case our equivalence relation should be defined in the way I am going to write it. So if R1 is related with 0t, then RT, R multiplied with T, R multiplied with T minus 0 multiplied with 1 or 1 multiplied with 0, 0 multiplied with 1, and then this whole thing multiplied with U is equal to 0 where T belongs to S. You can go back to our definition of equivalence relation for a ring, general ring which may or may not be an integral domain. So in order to make that equivalence relation transit so that it becomes equivalence relation, we have to define the relation in this particular way. Go back and please note that thing there, and this is equal to R belonging to R such that RT minus 0, you can see it that this is equal to R multiplied with TU. R multiplied with TU is equal to 0 because this is equal to 0 where T belongs to S. And this is equal to, these are those elements of the ring R, R belonging to R, such that if you like you can write it, you can write TU multiplied with R is equal to 0. It does not make a difference because our ring is a commutative ring where T belongs to S. And this is equal to R belonging to R such that, now note that T is an element of S and U is also an element of S. T is element of S and U is also an element of I must write here this particular U belongs to S. So where T belongs to S and U belongs to S, I just forgot it, so let me write it here. So U has to be an element of S. Now T belongs to S and U belongs to S, and S is closed under multiplication, therefore T multiplied with U belongs to S as well. So you can write T multiplied with U as S. SR is equal to 0 where S is equal to TU, where we have written S for TU, where TU is equal to S belongs to S because product of two elements of S is in S. So note that our kernel is equal to those elements of the ring R for which S multiplied with R is equal to 0. Those elements of the ring R whose product with some element of S is equal to 0. Now note that S does not contain 0 element. Therefore S multiplied with R is equal to 0. You cannot say that R is equal to 0 R because your ring is not an integral domain. So this is the condition you have obtained for kernel of F. So this is kernel of F. Note that if your ring R was an integral domain, then from here we could have obtained that R is equal to 0, and this would have become 0 singleton 0, and therefore you would have said that F is an injective ring homomorphism or a monomorphism. But since R is not necessarily an integral domain, so from here we cannot conclude that kernel of f consists of zero element only. So from here we cannot conclude that f is monomorphism, because this may not be equal to 0. Let me write here, which may not be this, because R may not be integral domain. If R was integral domain, then kernel is equal to 0, but because R may not be integral domain. And therefore this particular ring homomorphism F from ring R to ring of fractions S inverse R may not be injective. May not be injective. Or monomorphism. So this is very important thing to note, that if ring R is an integral domain, then the ring R is embedded in the ring of fractions. But if ring R is not an integral domain, then it is not necessary that the ring is embedded. Embedded means having one-to-one ring homomorphism from R to the ring of fractions. So it's a very important thing to note. If ring R is integral domain, then kernel is 0 and F is monomorphism. But if ring R may not be an integral domain, then this homomorphism F may not be monomorphism. So this is very important observation to have. So having said that, if R is integral domain, then kernel is 0 and F will become injective. Let me write it as a note. If R is integral domain, then kernel of F will become 0 singleton. Then kernel of F will of course become equal to 0, and therefore and F from R into S inverse R will become injective. Just recall that a ring homomorphism is injective if and only if its kernel is equal to 0 singleton, is equal to singleton 0. So if R is integral domain, then kernel will become 0 and this F will become monomorphism or one-to-one ring homomorphism. So let's have a little summary of the things we have done. So summary. So summary goes as follows. The construction of ring of fractions. This is about construction of ring of fractions. So first step is we choose a ring. R is a ring with identity, commutative ring in fact. R is a commutative ring with identity. So, and secondly, we take a subset of R. S is subset of R, which is multiplicatively closed. And contains 1, does not contain 0. And third step which we do is that we define an equivalence relation. We define an equivalence relation by saying that AS is related with let's say BT if and only if and only if, you can write in this way as well, if and only if AT minus BS multiplied with an element of S is equal to 0, where U belongs to S. So this is the definition of a relation. So this is the relation, and we have proved that this relation is equivalence relation. And then what we do next is that we consider the equivalence classes of this equivalence relation. Then we consider the equivalence classes of this equivalence relation. We write equivalence classes A by S such that AS belongs to R cross S. A by S is equivalence class of AS. So this is set of all the equivalence classes, and we denote it by S inverse R. So this is our symbol for ring of fractions. So we write S inverse R or set of all the equivalence classes of this equivalence relation by S inverse R, and then we define addition and multiplication on S inverse R. And then number 5, we define addition on S inverse R and multiplication on S inverse R. We define addition and multiplication in S inverse R as follows, and you know that very well. This is the way we do that. For addition, we take any two equivalence classes, A by S and B by T, and we add these two equivalence classes. In this way, their sum is equal to AT plus BS by ST. In fact, this is the way you do addition in your school in your school times. And multiplication, A by S multiplied with B by T is equal to AB multiplied by ST. Note that since S and T belong to S, therefore their product S multiplied with T also belongs to S. So this is the way we define addition and multiplication. Under these operations, S inverse R becomes a commutative ring with identity. Under these operations, S inverse R, or this ring of fractions, becomes not ring of fractions so far. This set becomes commutative ring with identity, and then we call it ring of fractions. Commutative ring with identity. And the conditions you have to check are as follows. We have defined addition and multiplication in this way, and secondly we can easily check that additive identity is you can check it by your own, or we have done it in our previous session. Additive identity is 0 by 1, 0 by any element of S, 0 by S, where S belongs to S. You can write 0 by 1 where S belongs to S. So equivalence class of 0 by S. You have 0 in the numerator and any element of S in the denominator. If you call it numerator and denominator, if you like, you can call it like that. So additive identity, this is additive identity. And then thirdly, multiplicative identity is you can write it as 1 by 1. You can write it as it is given by S by S, where S belongs to S. Best representative is 1 by 1, but any S by S belongs to same equivalence class as 1 by 1 belongs to, and is multiplicative identity, and you can check it very easily. And then additive inverse of A by S is given by minus A by S. Additive inverse of A by S is given by minus A by S. So this is additive inverse. And then remember that we don't need to talk about multiplicative inverse. Note, we need not talk about multiplicative inverse. And you must think why we don't need to talk about. So this is for you to think. Anyway, so we have discussed additive inverse. We don't have to mention multiplicative inverse. Then associativity and commutativity and distributivity are just inherited from associativity, commutativity and distributivity of the ring R. So associativity commutativity and distributivity for both operations, in fact, and distributivity for multiplication over addition, and distributivity of multiplication over addition. These are just inherited from the ring R, and this is very easy to verify that. It is slightly lengthy, but you can do it if you like. So having said that, now we are coming to this particular sequence. In case R is Z, suppose R is equal to Z. Z, the integral domain of integers, the ring of integers, which is in fact, and you know that Z is integral domain, which is in fact integral domain. So suppose we do this construction with Z, the ring of integers or integral domain of integers.